Hello. Today we'll be analyzing The War Photographer by Carol and Duffy. And to start, our thesis is that through the conflicts and experiences of a war photographer, Duffy is able to illustrate the different levels of physical and emotional conflicts that are created because of war. Now, with this set down, we'll be going over through soap, some stiff, and we have first we have the speaker, which is a male photographer. Since we have his dark room, he is finally alone. The occasion is he's developing photos after the war. Uh, the audience is pretty much the general public or anybody interested or anybody, basically anybody. Uh, the purpose of the poem is to illustrate how war affects people that were both present or not physically part of the conflict on different emotional levels. And the subject of the poem is a photographer developing film from the war. Uh, the the tone is mostly as like a solemn remembrance or reflection of what the photographer experienced. Here, like to ordinary pain which simple weather can expel, to fields which don't explode beneath the feet of running children in a nightmare heat. So it's comparing. He's reflecting upon his experiences in a war zone and also a reflection of and comparing the war zone to rural England and also a reflection of what he went through. Uh, the 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 structure of the poem has a rhyme scheme of finally alone and then odor rose and glows and then he mass and grass as pretty much the same for the whole entire poem except when we get well and also the end because six and prick could be
A slant rhyme.
as David said slant rhyme. uh, and there's really no consistent meter like it's not iambic pentameter or 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 something else. So one thing, it's a bit of a stretch, but one thing we could say about this rhyme scheme is that it reflects how the war photographer gets the photos and they're not very organized, they're blurry, and then they are developed and they come into existence and the idea is made.
Yeah, so it's almost like as if the war photographer is trying to put order within the chaos of war. So beginning with alone, that's might be representative of the chaos of war, and then rose and glows, which could be representative of the order the photographer is trying to impose on war.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, well, then afterwards is the title, and it's a title at first that it's just really a war photographer taking pictures of war, developing them. But then, as we analyze it further, we kind of saw that the war photographer it's like a war not only between it's like an inner war between the photographer and himself, and as we'll analyze it later, himself and caring, not caring, and caring about the conflicts, a war between the photographer and what the people want, what he should put on, what he should put forth for the editor to get, what is most alarming, what he should put on. So it's a conflict of interest basically, and it's really a war on many different emotional levels beside the physical one. Uh, and to go with that, with the inner war of the photographer is the theme, where we think that that for sentimental reasons sometimes one has to be impassive in order to deal with emotional events. As we'll analyze, well, here, uh, he's at the end of the of the poem. He stares impassively at the photos, which means he's neutral to them. But then, early in the beginning, his hands tremble as he sees them, and that's really a war between himself of caring about this conflict he has taken part of for a brief time, and in order to go on and really not and be well mentally, he has to be impassive, because then he'd be too invested in it, and he'd basically drive himself mad. So, and that can be said for a lot of things in life. So, and we thought that was the central theme to this poem. And well, now David's gonna go over some imagery and poetic devices that Duffy uses in the poem.
Okay. So first thing we have here is, so in his dark room, we already know that is a place where you develop photos. And he is finally alone, which implies that, like in war, he's among all these dead people, among all these other soldiers who are fighting for their lives, but in the dark room, he's finally alone. He can think on what he has seen. And then spools of suffering, those are representative of the films that he has taken, the picture films. And ordered rows also has a double meaning, not in that the films are put out in rows, but also of dead bodies. Usually in wars, they put all the dead bodies in rows, and also in a cemetery. All the gravestones are in rows as well. And then here we have a metaphor of comparing the photographer in the darkroom he's in to the church, and he is as though he was a priest preparing to intone a mass, and it's almost like he's remembering the dead, as would in a mass at church to remember the dead. And then these three here are cities where there was massive civil wars, implying that the photographer went to go photograph these types of wars. And then here we have an illusion, all flesh is grass, which is a biblical illusion. On how we can all die quickly. So Duffy's basically saying that, just like in these wars that we saw, people just died massive deaths, massive, and just trying to make us remember how quick death is and how really vulnerable we are. Solution slob, that's a bit of alliteration right here. And we also thought that this could be representative of blood gushing out in wars. That's what he saw, all this blood slopping out of the dead bodies, or while people getting shot down and sprays of blood just coming off. And it also has the double meaning in that the solutions in the trays are representative of the developing solution that he's using to make the photos. And then, as Carlos mentioned before, his hands, which did not tremble then, seem to now. So it's implying that he was fine at the war zone. But now when he's developing the photos and seeing what's actually happening, he's kind of afraid, or maybe in terror. And then he goes on to say, rural England, home again to ordinary pain which simple weather can dispel. And rural England is basically, that's like the calmest place you can be, just like fields and sheep and all that calming stuff. And then ordinary pain is just stuff like headache or you got a bad grade on something, which simple weather can dispel, so it's easy to go away. One simple thing can just make it all better. Contrasted to fields which don't explode beneath the feet of running children in a nightmare heat. So that's basically a war zone. And don't explode beneath the feet could also be seen as the mines. When people lay down mines, running through the field, someone just explodes. And then also something to notice here is that there is a short line here, short sentence, and further down here at the beginning of the third stanza, there's also a shorter sentence. And that seems to serve the purpose of bringing back the attention of the reader to the photographer, because he does seem to veer off here, talking about the trays and rural England and all that, and then he tries to pull you back, saying something is happening, trying to bring you back to the photographer. A stranger's features faintly start to twist. This is an interesting word choice here, twist. A photograph usually just slowly begins to appear, but twist could also have a double meaning that goes along with the half-formed ghost. He sees the photograph developing, and he begins to remember the dead soldiers that he took pictures of. And that half-formed ghost, the twist is basically that 2D image is almost becoming a 3D image of that dead body he has a picture of. He remembers the cries of this man's wife, how he sought approval without words to do what someone must. To do what someone must, it's almost a task, basically. And he sought approval without words, so he's trying to do something, do what someone must. He has to bring out this war and bring it to his editor, and that also has a double meaning, which we'll get to in the last stanza. How the blood stained into the foreign dust. And this is not really saying that it was a foreign war, but foreign to the photographer himself. Okay, so in the last stanza, 100 agonies in black and white, from which his editor will pick out 5 or 6. So 100 pictures of casualties and tragedies of war, and only 5 or 6 are going to be picking out. And that ties back to our theme of how, and the thesis, and also back in the title about the war between himself and the author and the people, how he's fighting with the author. He wants to get all these pictures in that show all the tragedies of war, but he's fighting against the editor, who only wants to put in 5 or 6, because you can't fill a whole newspaper with just photos and expect it to sell. And then returning back to the stanza, we say, for Sunday supplement, reader's eyes prick with tears between the bath and pre-lunch beers. So prick, the meaning of prick is like it kind of waters. Eyes waters. So it's not really, you're not outright crying, but it only invokes a small bit of emotion there. And then from the airplane, he stares impassively at where he earns his living, and they do not care. And there's quite a lot of ambiguous pronouns. Both these he's refer to the photographer. And this they refers to the readers. So the photographer is going basically to his next location or the next war, and he's trying to take himself away from all the tragedies he's about to see. He's trying to remain calm and objective, and that also ties back to our thesis and themes once again, that he's trying to deal with this emotional situation because the tragedies of war are gruesome and terrible, and he's just trying to take that all in, and the only way he can do that is just by being impassive to whatever he sees. And that contrasts with, as in the beginning, he says, so in the beginning he's basically impassive. He goes, which did not tremble then. He's impassive when taking pictures, but when he's developing them, he's getting quite scared and fearful. And then at the end, he's once again impassive. And then I forgot to address the rhyme scheme here, so we'll have A, B, B, C, D, D. And this pattern continues throughout the whole poem. We have alone, rose, glows, mass, grass, and then again, feet, heat, and that continues on through here. And another thing you might want to pick up on is there's some internal rhyme here, tears and beers. And I think that's what
That's this is back to the stanza. This is visual imagery that he used to describe uh, the battlefield. The fact in the last stanza, the fact that it's between bath and pre-lunch beers, it's that it's really not that important. It like emphasizes the lack of emotion that the people get from it. And well, that's pretty much our analysis of this poem. And here we'll put our soapstone stiff, so you may get a clear view of it to take notes. You can just pause this video and take from there. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.